think for a second about the last time you tried to learn something entirely new.
Oh, like picking up a new programming language for work or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you finally bought that woodworking kit. Or maybe, like, millions of other people, you decided you were going to learn a new language right before a big trip.
That's a classic one.
Right. But how did you approach it? Because if you're anything like me, you probably went looking for a shortcut.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we live in this era of life hacks.
We really do.
Oh.
We want the app that promises fluency in 3 weeks, or that tutorial that just lets us, I don't know, download the information into our brains on double speed.
Just cross the finish line as fast as possible.
Exactly. But today, we're completely rethinking how we learn anything. And we're looking at this through the lens of language acquisition, using a really fascinating set of sources.
It's a fantastic document we've got today.
It is. We got our hands on this foundational document that outlines the whole philosophy behind a YouTube channel called English Acquiring.
And it is such a remarkable read. So the notes were put together by Mustafa Bayrak, and he's a retired English teacher from Turkey.
Yeah, and when you open a document for a language learning channel, you expect to see, verb conjugation tables?
Vocabulary lists, grammar rules, yeah.
Right. But this reads more like a philosophical treatise. I mean, it explores what it actually means to communicate with another human being.
And the heavy responsibility that comes with sharing your words, it's really deep.
It is. So the mission for our deep dive today is to figure out how this educator takes a process that is usually incredibly mechanical, memorizing flashcards and taking quizzes.
And turns it into a profound journey of personal growth.
Yes. We're talking about the ethics of communication, the absolute necessity of human connection, and the value of just putting in meaningful, unglamorous effort.
It's essentially a guide to living a language, not just passing a test in it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Bayrak makes this really sharp distinction right out of the gate. He separates learning a language from acquiring it. How do those notes define that core difference?
Well, that distinction is really the bedrock of his entire approach. The argument here is that our modern obsession with fast learning actually contradicts the biological and psychological reality of how human beings retain information. There is a specific line in the text that sums it up perfectly. He says, "Knowledge that is loaded fast is often lost fast."
Wow. Knowledge loaded fast is lost fast.
Right. Because to merely learn something is to just hold it in your short-term memory long enough to pass an exam.
Or order a coffee on your vacation.
Exactly. But to acquire something means you are internalizing it. You're taking abstract data, digesting it, and integrating it into your nervous system until it becomes a reflex.
So you aren't consciously retrieving rules anymore.
No, you're just acting. You're just speaking.
Which brings up the first major principle he leans on, which is no blessing without effort. I find that phrasing so striking.
It's very poetic.
It is, and it completely shatters that illusion of speed we're constantly sold. He uses this great analogy in the notes about construction.
The house building analogy.
Yeah. He suggests that lasting acquisition is like slowly building a house. You can't just throw up a roof.
No, you need a solid foundation first.
Right. You need a deep foundation, you need walls that are perfectly balanced, and then finally you cap it with what he calls a roof of patience.
A roof of patience. I love that.
Because it's so much easier to tear a building down than it is to build one, Learning is an act of careful construction.
And if we look at the psychology behind that architectural approach, it becomes very clear why skipping that effort phase is so detrimental.
How so?
Well, true construction requires repetition. It requires the friction of making mistakes, enduring corrections, and having the persistence to just try again the next day.
Yeah.
When you embrace that difficulty, when you accept that the struggle is part of the blueprint, every small victory carries an immense psychological weight.
Because you earned it. It wasn't just handed to you by an algorithm.
Exactly. The notes point out a specific phenomenon. When a student finally pronounces a difficult word correctly, after days of stumbling over it, they aren't just acquiring a new piece of vocabulary.
What are they acquiring?
They are experiencing a surge of self-efficacy. They are learning the feeling of, I am capable of overcoming this.
Oh, that's huge.
You are building self-confidence brick by brick alongside the actual skill. If an app just gamifies the process and makes it artificially easy, you never get that deep structural confidence.
That makes me think about how this applies to literally any skill you might be trying to pick up.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I remember a few years ago trying to learn this complex video editing software. I watched a bunch of 10-minute quick start tutorials, thought I was an expert, and then the second I tried to edit a real project, I completely froze.
You loaded the knowledge fast and it was lost just as fast.
Exactly. The text actually compares acquiring a language to building a muscle.
hmm
It grows when you put it under tension, and it atrophies when you neglect it.
And that muscle analogy highlights the importance of frequency over intensity.
Right.
A little bit of consistent tension every single day is infinitely more effective than trying to cram all your effort into a frantic 9-hour session on a Sunday afternoon.
Which we've all done.
Of course. But if your effort is short and erratic, your results will be shallow.
Bayrak actually includes these little instructional couplets throughout the document to cement these ideas, which is such a great pedagogical tool.
They are very memorable.
Yeah, for this section on effort, the couplet is, knowledge gained in haste fades from the mind. Words shaped by effort remain gentle and kind.
It completely reframes the struggle.
It really does. The struggle isn't a barrier keeping you from the knowledge. The struggle is the mechanism that shapes the knowledge.
It forces you to view the effort phase with patience and the eventual learning phase with gratitude. The quality of your effort directly dictates the quality of your retention.
Which naturally leads us into the actual mechanics of how we speak. And this introduces what is definitely the most unusual concept in the entire document.
The acronym.
Yes, the acronym. It's TLTTFBS.
It's a mouthful.
It is. Now, instead of just reading a string of letters, let me break down how he groups this, because it's really about marrying the physical body with the mind.
Right. He splits communication into two buckets.
Exactly. First, you have the physical biological tools, your tongue, lips, teeth, and the sound itself. But nestled right between those physical tools are the emotional drivers: thought, feeling, and behavior.
What's fascinating here is how it creates a brilliant way to visualize communication. You have the mechanics on the outside and the humanity on the inside.
Now, I have to admit, when I first read this acronym, I had a bit of a cynical reaction.
Really? Why?
I just thought, hold on, isn't this just a really complicated 7-letter way of saying, think before you speak? Why do we need to break it down into lips and teeth and feelings?
It's tempting to reduce it to that, but there is a much deeper nuance here.
Okay, tell me.
Think before you speak usually just means making sure your facts are straight, right? Or making sure you aren't saying something overtly foolish.
Right, just filtering yourself.
Exactly. But what this framework argues is that correct thought on its own cannot become a meaningful message without sincere feeling and respectful behavior attached to it.
Oh, well.
Knowledge that you only process with your intellect is incomplete. It has to be filtered through your emotional intelligence, your heart, if you will, before it passes through the physical articulators of your tongue and teeth.
Because if you just have the thought and the physical sound, without the feeling and the behavior, things go completely off the rails.
They absolutely do. The notes issue a very stark warning about this. If you lack the discipline to align your emotional intent with your physical words, even a completely truthful statement can be deeply damaging.
We've all been on the receiving end of that, haven't we?
Oh, definitely.
Think about a time someone gave you so-called constructive criticism. The thought behind their words might have been technically accurate. The sound coming past their lips and teeth was clear.
But the delivery was off.
Right. If their feeling was rooted in frustration or their behavior was condescending, that truth didn't help you at all. It just felt like an attack.
That is precisely the danger Bayrak is highlighting. The path to genuine understanding, to actually persuading someone or building trust, requires you to carry your words with immense discipline.
Discipline is the perfect word for it.
You have to actively balance your emotions and ensure your behavior is honoring the person you're speaking to. That is why the text boldly claims that this TLTTFBS acronym isn't just a speaking technique for English learners.
What does he call it?
He calls it a technique of being human.
A technique of being human.
Yeah.
That is such a heavy, beautiful responsibility to place on a student who is, just trying to learn how to ask where the train station is in a new language.
But it makes perfect sense. You are learning how to exist in a shared space with another person.
You really are.
Yeah.
The couplet he uses for this concept is, words not born from the heart become arrows of pain. Measured words turn into healing rain.
It is such a striking visual. Are you going to be an archer firing arrows, or are you going to provide healing rain?
Right.
And this micro-level interaction between two people naturally scales up into the broader philosophical framework that the author uses to understand the modern world.
Yes. The notes introduce a roadmap called The first 310 fertile circle.
Hmm,
Let's unpack that because it expands the scope of this deep dive
as
significantly.
this does.
The 310 name is a bit dense, but if I'm understanding the notes correctly, the 3 refers to 3 core cycles of the human condition. It's essentially about how we plant seeds for a meaningful life. What is happening in cycle 1?
So cycle 1 explores the dynamic between human and knowledge. It establishes that knowledge is a form of raw power. It empowers humans to build, to invent, to progress.
Okay, that makes sense.
But, and this is the crucial caveat, humans have a fundamental duty to mature that knowledge with ethics.
So you can't just have the knowledge alone.
No, raw intellect without an ethical foundation is dangerous. The knowledge serves the human, but the human must elevate the knowledge.
Which sets the stage for cycle 2, focused on human well-being and tolerance. And I really want to linger on this one because it is so incredibly relevant to how you and I navigate the world right now.
It's extremely timely.
The notes specifically frame this cycle around the challenges of the virtual world. It asks this poignant question: is it still possible to maintain empathy and tolerance when we are communicating through screens?
It is the defining communication challenge of our era. If we tie this back to the TLTTFBS framework we just talked about, the virtual world strips away our physical presence.
Right, you can't see my lips or teeth.
Exactly. You can't hear the tone of my sound. All you see is text on a screen. When those physical cues disappear, it becomes dangerously easy for the feeling and the respectful behavior to vanish as well.
We just forget that there is a human being on the other end of the connection.
It's so true. It's why comment sections on the internet can turn toxic so quickly.
Yeah.
We are firing those arrows of pain because we aren't practicing the discipline of being human.
Man, that hits hard. And that brings us to the final cycle, cycle 3, human and meaning or consciousness.
This cycle poses the ultimate existential question. The notes ask us to look around at our modern reality. We have unparalleled speed. We have instant communication across the globe.
We hold the sum total of human knowledge in a little glass rectangle in our pockets.
Right, but are our lives actually richer for it? Where is the meaning?
It's the difference between being connected and actually connecting. You can doom scroll for 3 hours, taking in thousands of pieces of information, and walk away feeling completely empty.
Because speed and volume do not equate to meaning. Bayrak beautifully synthesizes these 3 cycles, suggesting that they aren't separate tasks, but 3 faces of a single truth.
How so?
The ultimate curriculum of a meaningful life, whether you are learning English or just trying to be a good neighbor, is to strengthen yourself with knowledge, protect your communities with tolerance, and deepen your existence with meaning.
Okay, so this is an incredibly grand, sweeping philosophy. It's inspiring. But if I'm a student sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday night with my laptop open, how do I actually practice this?
You need a practical application.
Exactly. How does the English acquiring channel translate this into an actionable lesson plan? The notes outline a progressive system called Harmony.
Right. Harmony is the practical architecture we talked about earlier. The system is broken down into stages.
What happens at the beginning?
Stages 1 through 3 represent the silent foundational work. This is the heavy lifting of listening, reading, internalizing vocabulary, and understanding the basic structures.
So it's pouring the concrete and framing the walls of that house.
Precisely. But the notes are adamant that you cannot stay in those early stages forever. From Harmony stage 4 onward, the language has to enter the messy reality of daily life.
Because language isn't meant to live in a textbook. You have to put the roof on the house.
Exactly.
The notes emphasize that true acquisition happens through rhythm, expression, and real-time production. You have to write essays, have spontaneous chats, and tell stories.
The cycle of listening, reading, repeating, speaking, writing, and producing is what finally makes the knowledge permanent. And to facilitate that production, the channel uses a highly specific prompting method.
Yes, the EQA style. Example, question, answer.
It's very effective.
And I have to say, looking through the examples in the source, the prompts are delightfully mundane.
They really are.
They aren't your standard robotic, the pen is blue sentences. There is one prompt that gives an example about making potato salad.
Potato salad.
Yes, it lists out needing boiled potatoes, onions, hot pepper, and parsley, and then asks the student, what is your favorite dish, and what do you need to make it?
It seems simple, but it's a very clever pedagogical trick. It demands that the learner dig into their own lived experience.
You aren't just reciting a pre-written dialogue.
No, you have to formulate an answer that is intimately true to who you are. It forces you to combine your personal thoughts and feelings with the new physical sounds you are learning.
There's another prompt that just cracked me up. The example is about giving advice, and it says, I advise you to keep the workplaces clean and not to let the pets enter the kitchen for kitchen hygiene. What do you advise me to do or not to do?
That is so specific.
Just imagine the mental gymnastics of trying to explain, with a limited vocabulary, why the family dog cannot be near the stove while someone is cooking.
Right.
It completely grounds the academic exercise in the chaotic, hilarious reality of human life.
You can see how that EQA method could be applied to learning anything, really.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are learning to code, an EQA approach would be looking at a piece of example code, questioning why a specific function was used, and then being forced to answer by writing a new program that solves a problem in your own life.
It moves you from a passive consumer to an active producer. To bring this all together, the notes provide a sample dialogue to show what this looks like in practice. It's a conversation between two characters, David and Robert. And honestly, reading through it, the most striking thing is how utterly normal it is.
It is the antithesis of high-stakes drama.
Seriously.
There are no convoluted grammatical traps designed to trick the student into failing. It's just two polite people navigating a conversation.
Right, David is a French bookseller who enjoys reading book summaries to get the general idea of things.
And Robert is an interior designer whose wife writes children's pedagogy stories, and he loves big family gatherings.
They talk about their jobs, their spouses, their hobbies. It's charming, but it's not exactly a blockbuster movie script. Why include such a low-key interaction?
Because that low-key interaction is the entire philosophy realized. It is the TLTTFBS framework functioning perfectly in the wild.
Oh, I see.
David and Robert are demonstrating curious thoughts, warm feelings, and respectful behavior. They aren't debating politics or trying to prove who is smarter. They are building a bridge of mutual trust, using measured, gentle words.
It's a masterclass in how knowledge is matured by ethics.
It really is.
It really shifts your perspective. Learning a language isn't just about swapping out a word in your native tongue for a foreign equivalent. It's about developing the capacity to be a gracious host to another person's humanity.
Beautifully said.
It's about willingly enduring the friction of making mistakes, building that structural foundation with a roof of patience so that you can safely share your truth and respectfully receive someone else's.
And ultimately, it's about finding a quiet, genuine meaning in that exchange, which is increasingly difficult in a digital age that screams for our attention and prioritizes speed over substance.
What a phenomenal journey this has been today. We started with the realization that the illusion of speed is a trap, and that true acquisition requires the blessing of quality effort.
The house needs a foundation.
Exactly. We dug into the rigorous emotional discipline of aligning our physical words with our heartfelt intentions, ensuring we offer healing rain instead of arrows of pain.
TLTTFBS in action.
Then we zoomed out to look at the three cycles of the human condition, balancing raw knowledge with ethics and maintaining our tolerance in an increasingly virtual world.
The fertile circle.
And finally, we saw it all grounded in the messy, beautiful reality of the harmony system, potato salad recipes, and the quiet dignity of two strangers getting to know each other.
It certainly provides a heavy dose of perspective on how we approach our daily interactions.
It really does.
But before we wrap up, there is one final lingering implication of all this that I think is worth mulling over.
Okay, lay it on me.
Bayrak briefly mentions in his notes that things like the internet, YouTube, and AI are wonderful facilitators, but that real mastery still requires human repetition and production.
Right.
Let's pull that thread into our current reality. We are living in a moment where artificial intelligence can translate almost any language for us in real time with zero effort.
It's true.
You can speak into a device, and a machine will flawlessly articulate your thoughts to a stranger in a language you haven't spent a single second learning.
It's an incredible technological leap. It feels like science fiction come to life.
It is undeniably convenient. But if we subscribe to the philosophy we've unpacked today, if we believe that knowledge must be matured by human ethics, and that the struggle of construction is what builds our psychological resilience.
Where does the machine fit in?
Exactly. What are we losing when we outsource that struggle to an algorithm? If relying on a machine removes the frustration, the mistakes, the slow persistence, and the vulnerable attempt to align your tongue, lips, and heart.
Does it bypass the whole technique of being human?
Does it bypass the very technique of being human that Bayrak is talking about? In our rush to perfectly transmit data across a language barrier, are we stripping away the meaning?
Wow.
Perhaps when it comes to human connection, the struggle to understand one another isn't an obstacle in the way of the destination, Perhaps the struggle itself is the destination.
If the machine removes the effort, it removes the blessing. That is a profound thought to leave you with. Think about where you might be rushing past the struggle in your own life and what you might be missing because of it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this conversation inspires you to approach whatever you are trying to learn next with a little more patience, a lot more heart, and the courage to build your knowledge slowly. Until next time, keep learning, keep acquiring, and keep trying to connect.